God, family, country. And the God part specifically goes back to the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I unapologetically and wholeheartedly attach myself to that event, belief, and result. And I will not be silent. And I'm one of many. And I'm not going to listen to anti-Semitic allegation nonsense, because to do so would be to dishonor some of my relatives, particularly my maternal grandmother, Elsie Freiberg from Hamburg, Germany, escaped to the United States. But it's time to take a hard look at our relationship with Israel, not with Jewish people. I hope they all come to Jesus. That's my personal belief. But I don't sit here in judgment and condemn them and think that anything negative should happen to them. Quite the contrary. Outside people of the Christian faith, we should feel the closest to the people of Israel for all the obvious reasons. But and I had to look at this objectively, and I have been an unapologetic supporter of Israel for a long time. But I had to step back and say, is this really working? And it's like a long-term dating relationship. And it's like there's cheating involved, and oh, I'll never do it again, or the denial that goes with it. And then you forgive and forget and you move on, and it happens again and again and again. And this is a pretty good analogy to what we're looking at here. First, we're going to do a number of segments on this because what I'd really like in my ideal world, so before the ADL and all these groups, the IRHA, come after me, and I could care less, honestly. Honestly, I could care less. But the reality is this, is that I would prefer to have a good mutual relationship with Israel where we compromise on foreign policy goals in the Middle East. They stay the heck out of our politics. They go through appropriate channels to affect change that benefits them. Ambassadors, diplomats, the president, and stop buying off Congress. That's right, buying off Congress. Tell me why APAC, an unregistered under the FARA regulations, Foreign Agent Registration Act, why they don't have to register? Hmm? Can someone please tell me that? Kennedy tried to get him registered, but before he could get that done, he was killed. And no, I'm not tying Israel into that. I'm just saying that one president saw a need for that. I can't believe Ronald Reagan, after what happened in Beirut in 1983, did not follow through with this. And I'm going to be covering that in another segment today. Because when we look at here, I see a one-sided relationship. Other than the rapid deployment force that the Israelis offered to America, basically, by their positioning geographically and their military prowess, replete with our supplies and training, they were a rapid response force to any Soviet incursion into the Middle East that would threaten Middle East oil supplies. I absolutely honor that. But I don't honor the rest of the crap that's gone on, and it's crap. They're not a very good friend. Not Jewish people, starting back with the one, Golda Meir, she had to be tough, but she wasn't a genocidal freak. Itzhak Rabin, and gee, what happened to him? Because he wasn't militant enough. And then you look at Sharon and Netanyahu, two birds of a feather. We'll be covering that today. But what I want to get to here quickly is the buying off of our social media by Netanyahu. And we know that it exists, but we even have more details now. And it's deeply disturbing that a supposed ally and foreign government is allowed to have such a media presence. Oh, I know the IRHA says if you accuse Jewish people of controlling the media, well, okay, we're going to hit that. We're going to hit that right here too. In fact, let me make a note of that here, because maybe the IRHA would say this, that they'd agree with me. It's not so much that a particular group, an ethnicity or religion controls an aspect of something. It's what they do with that power. That's what matters. It doesn't bother me that Jewish people control a good portion of our media. It's what you do with that. And when I look at what they're doing with Salem Media, what they're doing with social media, and ultimately that attitude spreads to TikTok, say something negative about Netanyahu and see how long you have an account at TikTok. Hmm? Do a movie about the USS Liberty and see if it ever gets on, oh, I don't know, Amazon, HBO, Paramount. Hmm. Will that happen? Hell, we can't even get coverage. We're going to get into the media aspect today. And I'm saying this as a warning. I don't pretend that we can stop it because when you're on the Israeli payroll, like 94% of Congress and senators are, they're not going to move to stop it. Trump, who has Susie Wiles as his chief of staff, who ran Netanyahu's campaign in 2023, he's not going to stop it. But I think you need to be aware of it and you need to warn your kids. And it's the warning of the kids that worries me because Israel is trying to turn our kids into future cannon fodder for their foreign policy objectives. And after I present you this information, I think you'll have no doubt that I'm telling you the truth. We're brought to you by a tremendous set of products here, and I literally owe my life and my lifestyle to this. It's one thing to live a long life, it's another thing to have a health span that's almost as long as your lifespan. Most Americans spend 15 to 20 years in terrible decline. It's painful. Life isn't fun. I don't want to be that person. I like the people of Okinawa, the way they work in the fields until their 80s, longest lifespan in the world. And then they have about a 3 to 6 month decline and they're gone. But they've lived a fruitful, productive life for most of their life. That's what I believe these products are giving me. I was at death's doorstep with RSV and strep lung linings. Then I'm back in the gym after I recover that, thanks to the Nanosoma liquid spray. And I'm rubbing the gel on and I'm trusting my friends are telling me, Dave, this works. Just stay the course, stay the course. 6 to 8 weeks later, wow, I can do a Bulgarian split squat. I can do leg press without terrible knee pain. What's going on here? Because it grows pluripotent stem cells. That's how. We have over 30 research studies that tells us that. And then you have the skin cream, cuts and burns, and you saw how I used it to heal a cut that probably needed, not probably, did need stitches. Together, this is the three pack. It's 15% off. And because of supply chain shortages, I believe are coming because of the oil crisis, due to we're going to restart the war and the economy is going to go to hell in a handbasket for a while, at least for a while. Supply chain, food, medicine, gas, the medicine part, you need to have this in your medicine chest. Everybody. Go to iwantmyhealthback.com/Dave Hodges. iwantmyhealthback.com/Dave Hodges. And the reason that I'm really pushing the product so hard, besides the fact they work, and I think everybody would benefit, is because of the fact that Israel has us and we're going to be back in a war. And until we're in a ground invasion, they're not going to be happy. And what I'm going to give you here, Tucker Carlson interviewed Trump's social media guy, his former social media guy. And that interview is very revealing about what came out. And then I checked a few of his facts. And he ain't lying. He ain't lying. This guy was telling the truth. All right, let's get down to it. This happened with Charlie. We know about the Charlie deal, and I'll cover that later, but he couldn't be manipulated media-wise. That's why I think he ended up where he was. But anyway, DJT, Donald John Trump, social media. Okay? He could stop this. He won't. The government could step in. They won't. We look at here, and there's a gentleman named Brad Pasquale 6 years ago, 7 years ago. He was Trump's social media director. Now he couldn't get a meeting in the West Wing with anybody. Okay. But Israel initially paid him $15 million to do social media intervention on behalf of Israel. Well, that 15 million grew to 46 million. And under the Fara Act, Foreign Agent Registration Act, which doesn't measure what AIPAC does, but under that, we learned some very interesting things. First of all, a man is now paid $46 million, and this deal was put together by a third party, Habas Media Group, which is out of Germany. I find that interesting. And the FARA filing says that this Pascal guy, he needs to be inclusive in all media. He needs to, out of his all media, have at least 100 presentations pro-Israel per month, and that they need to have 5,000 deliveries, and that they need 50 million impressions. This is spelled out in the FARA contract. This is what they're demanding for performance of payment. And 80% of the material must be geared towards Gen Z. Okay, now, if the hairs didn't stand up on the back of your neck when I said this, okay, you might want to move your ear a little closer to the speaker, and I'm going to explain it to you, especially if you have kids or grandkids, nephews and nieces. And if you're of the Gen Z age, you better really pay attention. As I have said, there's a reason why Trump made the draft registration automatic and you didn't have to register through selective service. And here it is. The Gen Zs will be the ones who will be the boots on the ground. And I have multiple sources telling me, and I told you this would happen. It's out there with other sources now on social media saying we're taking, and the round number I keep hearing is 60,000 troops into Iran between the midterms and next March, actually starting December to March is what I've been told. February is the ideal target date because of weather. This is what I've been told. It's not just me saying it now. And I told you this story was going to break. And I got it from a really prominent military person in some circles. And I can't be more specific than that. But he just said, Dave, this is going to be everywhere. You report it now. In a few days, if someone's calling you a nut, they're going to shut their face really quickly. That was his exact words. Now, um, there's also integration into Salem Media. Josh Hammer. Oh, yeah. TPUSA. So Charlie walking away from Netanyahu, we'll cover that in a later segment in more detail, to TPUSA. If you criticize Netanyahu, you're anti-Semitic. Boo-hoo-hoo, Erica Kirk on media, crying over anti-Semitism more than the death of Charlie Kirk. This is what I've seen. It's my judgment, and I'm certainly not alone in that judgment. I'm still waiting for the grieving widow to appear, and I made excuses for her for weeks. I wouldn't touch that subject for weeks because I thought it was in bad taste. But you can only see what you see. And when you see 5 days after the death, grifting behavior on media, internal video that was released, and we've played it. Oh, yeah, we paid this money. Ha, 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 ha. Not a word about Charlie, just yucking it up over the money coming in. Yucking it up. Yucking it up over the number of people that went to the memorial not to honor my late husband and all the great things he stood for. And then they say, we're keeping Charlie's legacy alive. Really? We're, yeah. Okay. That's something I probably should do another piece on in detail. Not enough time here. All right. So 50 million impressions. And they're also getting this guy to coach AI to be pro-Israel and their foreign policy for greater Israel. And greater Israel is something I'm still putting together. I'm trying to figure out the role of the Board of Peace, where the World Economic Forum and the United Nations Security Council, where they come down on these topics. And I'm finding linkages, but I think to put something out right now might be a little premature. I don't want to be in error when I say what I think I'm going to find completely, but I can say this with certainty. The FARA contract calls for this former social media director of Trump, dating back to 2019. He is to engage in coaching AI for the pro-Israel Greater Israel Pact, which is basically taking over the Middle East. Does that include Turkey? I'm planting a seed. Put that in your brain, people. Does that include Turkey? I'm putting it in your mind. And you better hope that it doesn't, because that is the absolute path to World War III. We're going to do a separate piece on that. Now, the president, who I still think he truly cares about the American people, but he's making decisions that aren't in our best interest. Like, where's the oil going to come from? You keep fighting this war. You can't win this war. Why doesn't Israel commit ground troops? Why is it just going to be the United States? Israel's already said we're not sending ground troops. We want you to do it. Hey, you're a punk, says him. Okay, that's the kind of mentality that we're dealing with right now. And the Gen Z people, you need to be scared because you're the ones that are going to get drafted. You're the ones that are going to come home in body bags, and it will be Vietnam on steroids. And by the way, the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong, they didn't have the kind of missiles that Iran has that we have no defense for. So we think we're going to take Karg Island and get that oil? Think again. I'm Dave Hodges. Pray for peace, pray for discernment of our leaders. But folks, I don't see how we can continue with the leadership that we have. The vast majority need to be unelected and need to be replaced with people that are living the consequences of these bad political decisions. And they'll be closer to the people. They'll make decisions that make sense. They worry about balancing a budget because that's what they have to do struggling today. That's who needs to be in office. We don't need grifters to go in as millionaires and leave as billionaires, Nancy Pelosi. We don't need that. We need people from the people. And then we need to cut the corporations out, no campaign donations, cut foreign governments out. I'll do a whole piece on this because if we don't do some campaign reform quickly, there ain't going to be a 275th anniversary. There's certainly not going to be a tricentennial. We're in big trouble and we are destroying ourselves by destroying our sovereignty. And that'll be a constant theme as we work our way through today. I'm Dave Hodges. I want to be friends with Israel. I don't want to be their servant. Plain and simple. We're out.